It was in September 2019 that I published my Shelf 14 video, the shelf with all the giant books. And there was one book in there that I did not show. I said at that time that I was saving it for later. That day is finally here. So come with me. Let's head over to Shelf 14, get that giant book out, put it on the table, and take a closer look at it. The outside case slash box is of minimal and elegant design, the black and white matching the color scheme of the book, with the central circle and the design elements taken from the end pages. You have the title Black Hole, the Fantagraphic Studio Edition by Charles Burns, the ISBN, and the price of $150, which is not what I paid for it because of this corner. I picked it up as a damaged copy, and although this looks pretty nasty, you can see that once we get to the inside, the book, which is the main attraction, which is the main thing, is absolutely untouched. I was very happy to see that it was spotless without a crease on it, in spite of what looked like a pretty bad thing on the cover. So let's put the box away for right now and take a closer look at the studio edition of Charles Burns' Black Hole. A quick size comparison to the collected hardcover edition shows us that it is more than twice the size, which is par for the course for these artist editions, gallery editions, and studio editions. They're really celebrating the original art, and the original art is almost always drawn and painted at much larger sizes than finally printed at. The front cover is a single image, one of the issue covers in black and white, without the coloring that the cover had, and there is no text over here at all. We have some handsome end papers reproduced here at this huge size, which is great given that the collected hardcover edition doesn't have these end pages, as I discussed in my previous video in comparing the single issues to the collected edition. And the copyright page has some information, which is the only text from the publisher that you'll find in this whole book, other than the titles and the speech. Obviously, the lettered speech, as that's part of the comic. There is no external, or there is no extra text in this book. There are no notes, there's no introduction, there are no scholarly essays, there are not any annotations, which might be disappointing to some people, but I'm okay with it, honestly, because at this size and the way that I have to read this book, which will always be like this, it's always lying on the table flat in front of me as I turn these huge pages. I don't really think it's the kind of volume for scholarly essays. I prefer those to be in much more reader-friendly formats, things that I can hold closer to my face and things that I can get into the density of by being closer. This is really like an album of original art. That's the way I feel about all the artist editions and gallery editions. I like to pretend as if I have this huge portfolio of the artist's original pages of a book, of a comic, or a collection of comics that I really love. And that's what this studio edition in particular focuses on absolutely exclusively, by having no other text and by not even having any process pages. There are no thumbnails, there are no sketches, there are no concept things. They're just the final pages as they were scanned in. It makes you feel as if you are at the publishers and ready to send these off for printing. And this is a particularly finished set of pages. There are no blue pencil marks that I can see anywhere. I did spot a couple of whiteout or corrections, but there were very few of them and far between. Because Charles Burns is the penciler and the inker and the letterer, and I think he's also maybe the designer, maybe he even set it himself. There are no notes or instructions to anyone else. There are no doodles on the side. And while I love those artist editions and gallery editions that show me how something was born, that show me how something was created. I'm also a fan of this alternative take in which we're just getting these pages. The richness of the black and white and the compositions and the layouts themselves are to be celebrated, and they are celebrated in such a magnificent way through this production with these thick, creamy pages, with this color offset of the pages giving them that manuscript feel. They're not white. As you can see, the book's pages are white, but the art paper feels like parchment, something that we have seen in other gallery editions. And this handsome scanning at this very high resolution and this top quality printing and reproduction seems to be the only thing that this particular book needs. I wouldn't have minded annotations from the author, obviously. I would have loved to know why a particular approach was taken, but I think somewhere it may also demystify or remove the magic of some of these pages. So I'm okay with not having them and having only these pages, the ones that are as hypnotic and as hallucinatory as they were in the comic, without anything else mitigating or watering that down, being magnified quite literally at this size, but also giving me this appreciation of the craft that's gone in. Because I'm not an artist, I am not looking for this book to teach me how to draw like Charles Burns or to give me tips and tricks and secrets. I do think I get a renewed appreciation for the achievement, the way that I do with a lot of these gallery editions for this magnificent work. And I think this is a fantastic volume to put in front of you and to have it just wash over you. It's very easy to get lost in these panels and these pages for a couple of hours at a time. Like the couple of gallery artist editions I've encountered, this is not a complete work. It does not have the full book in it, but it does have full chapters within it. So you can read it because it is fully lettered and finished, as you can see. You can read it as reading an issue here or there at this size in original art. For me, there's a very curious sensation of being somewhere between a finished product and a work in progress because it's so clean, because there are not even ruler lines to keep things straight, because there is no blue pencil, because there are no marks or stains on the side of the pages. You can sometimes forget that you're looking at art pages and not the finished product. There is that lack of that final gloss that at least the single issues have, but because you don't necessarily see big blotchy blacks, I think it makes me admire Charles Burns's efforts and techniques even more, where he is making things invisible, where it seems to me, at least from these pages, it's as if he's removed the strings from the puppet show. It's a different way to look at art pages, and one that I appreciate just as much as the one that shows me how something was put together piece by piece. When you look at some of the more complex pages, just having it at this size with this depth, I think, is so impressive that I don't know if it would have necessarily been better to see pencil lines and to see mistakes and errors. Here's another little scale comparison. At the end of the book, you get a few more of those end pages, but you also get a handful of the covers, and this time in black and white. So you see the original art, the inked art of the covers without the colors, which is interesting and a very different experience from those neon, garish almost colors of the single issues. You get some more end pages. And then the back cover is yet another cover of one of the single issues in black and white. Again, lacking all text. There's no price. There's no barcode information. There's no ISBN. There's nothing. In this way, it feels like a very pure collection of art. It's a very bare and minimalistic approach, matching what we saw on my poor damaged cover, into which I will now put this away, and I'll put it upside down. So one of the spine corners, which is a little bit more reinforced, is at the weakest part of the box, and put it back on my shelf. Thank you for watching.